in shipping costs, insurance, and the rest. Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, two issues that seems to be very clear in our mind is the issue of a digital economy tax. The young people seems to be very uncomfortable. The IT SWAVE people seem to be very uncomfortable. While it is necessary to expand the tax, people who pay taxes and corporations that pay taxes, in order to lessen the burden on any individual, there has been a continuous plea that this is a nascent economy, it's a nascent sector. They should be allowed time, a little more time, to grow, to understand the complexity. I'm sure even KRA does not understand the complexity of that particular economy. It will be good, the committee, to consider delaying the imposition of the digital economy tax for a few years to come, so that all of us understand how it operates. As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, it is important. Kenyans have got no problem paying taxes. Kenyans are willing to pay taxes. I remember when Honorable Mwai Kibaki became the president, they had one clarion call: pay tax to enhance our independence. Most Kenyans are willing to pay. However, they do not see value for the tax. They do not see what tax is doing for them. As my colleagues have clearly stated, Kenyans have got no jobs. Yet there's no enabling environment to allow them create jobs for themselves. Any taxation measures, any measures imposed to raise revenue must be done in such a manner to allow the expansion of the economy, to allow people get jobs, to allow people meet the expenses. But as it is, the finance bill is, again, it's business as usual, nothing innovative that can spur economic growth. We are afraid we'll still go back to the same endless story, supplementary bills, supplementary budget, and the rest of the thing. We hope one time we'll organize ourselves without using COVID-19 as an excuse, so that we get this country back to economic prosperity that's expected of this country. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Let's have the member for Mogotio, Honorable Kamuren.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to contribute on this very important motion, finance bill. Listening to the chairman of the Finance Bill Committee, I must say they did a good job. I'm trying to think this was the first time I'm hearing some new innovations, especially on this digital taxation. But first of all, I'd like to say upfront that our main problem with our budget and taxation issues is always about revenues. And at the end of the year, we come back and say we're not able to get enough revenues. And I think this is an area which the committee needs to be very innovative. As one of my colleagues have just said, that's almost like business as usual. The usual suspects are almost taxed, but at least there was a bit of new innovations. I'd like to say that, first of all, I'd like to appreciate the withdrawal of taxation of pensions, which was going to hurt the elderly people who are already retired. And as people have said already, coronavirus is already challenging them, and therefore we should not add another burden to them. So we thank the committee and the Treasury for agreeing to remove that taxation. Two, I'd like also to say that the issues pertaining to EBZ, trying to bring in our goods which are made locally, will go a long way in strengthening our production capacity, industrialization issues. So I'd like to welcome the 50% import of those items into the market. I'm not sure about the 2.5% custom duty on them. Maybe they can revisit that and look at it again. The toll stations, which are going to be put in the new roads, I think it's a new way also of doing business. I've been to South Africa and also to China, and I see a lot of roads there are actually managed through PPP or by way of tolling stations every 100 kilometers. I only want to say that as they introduce these tolls, they must be very careful to see that people are not overtaxed in those highways, and a proper management of the toll funding, which is going to be set up to be properly managed. They also saw that they are also going to tax something on solar batteries and others, and tractors. I think it's an area which we need to look at because we may be actually impacting on agriculture indirectly. We may be actually making the production of food in this country to increase. So I want to say that we will need to revisit the issue of taxing tractors, and maybe we should look for other ways of getting the revenue. And finally, Madam Speaker, I'd like to say this issue on digital taxation is exciting. I think let's not, I know the issue of saying that the youth are the ones who are mainly engaged in this sector may not be true. We have companies who are also in this business. You had the example of Uber and others who are actually engaged in high business dealing with digital platforms. So I think this is an area which we need to look at. It's a lot of good money. It can actually increase the revenues for the government. So we need to revisit it. I think it's a good thing. Let us not say that it's actually targeting the youth. Not necessarily. This is an area where we can actually expand in terms of getting more new revenues. And with that, I beg to support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Oduol Adhiambo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for an opportunity to contribute to this Finance Bill 2020. Madam Speaker, on the outset, I would like to thank the committee and indeed indicate that it was clear that in the Finance Bill there is great focus to address areas that would improve not only the capacity of government to raise revenue, but indeed to enable government to match revenue collection and expenditure. Madam Speaker, it is also of great joy that a key area like taxation of the retirees' income was indeed taken into account and addressed. However, Madam Speaker, I want to say that whereas I agree and support indeed the proposals because of the manner that they are addressing the needs and seeking to look into them, I have felt that sitting in this parliament as a nominated member whose nomination by and large acknowledged that, Madam Speaker, the way that society is organized, especially when we look at issues not just of just income, given the manner that we look at whether people have paid employment or whether they are in the informal sector, looking indeed at the patterns of consumption. And Madam Speaker, I do acknowledge and respect the manner that I've had members here today seek to get us as a National Assembly to take into consideration that when we tax or we remove VAT or indeed we touch on matters that engage with consumption taxes such as gas and digital economy tax, then we are going to be making some very specific groups disadvantaged. Because, Madam Speaker, it is clear, as we have indicated, that if we are going to engage and indeed implement LPG taxation on gas, we are going to have some degree to which women, by virtue of their role and consumption of what they do, will be particularly disadvantaged. Equally, Madam Speaker, when we look at the digital economy tax, we are going to find that the youth are to that extent disadvantaged. But Madam Speaker, as I said earlier, I just wanted, in a way, Madam Speaker, it might be belated because it's 3 years to my being here in the National Assembly, to raise and indeed persuade the committee that as they look at the National Finance Bill or any other proposals, they wear a lens that, Madam Speaker, has increasingly become a lot of a cliche, and which is where I, Madam Speaker, today wanted to persuade the House and all of us to be aware that the manner in which proposals that we make, particularly if they are proposals that we are making on a fundamental area, such as taxation, and areas that are going to be seeking to touch on the needs, as we have clearly indicated in this House, that of the general population and the citizens, we should not, Madam Speaker, shy away from what has been proved to be the manner that would enable us, not just when it comes to our attention that it is the youth, and then we are dealing with digital economy taxation, or that when we are talking about UNGA, then we think of the UNGA eating zones. Madam Speaker, there is a way in which, as I thank the committee and indeed support the finance bill, I am seeking that when we look at the proposals that we make, we can ensure every time that we take account of how these proposals, by virtue of the way that, Madam Speaker, either some members of the citizenry are male or female, women, girls, men, and boys, and Madam Speaker, the way that these proposals will affect them. Madam Speaker, let me speak to the minimum tax, for example. When we look at this, and I commend the committee because, Madam Speaker, I have seen that this is a proposal that indeed is working and is one that has been found to be useful in other countries. But, Madam Speaker, what I note is that in those other countries, when we are going to talk about minimum tax, whether there is loss or not, there has been consideration made that businesses must have been at a loss over a period of time. And significantly, also, Madam Speaker, that when we are looking at this idea, then we will be seeking to look at the manner, therefore, that all the businesses that are enjoying the government infrastructure, say in Kenya, will not just be included in this taxation and therefore encouraged or required to pay this minimum tax without considering the factors that could be leading to their losses. I, Madam Speaker, feel that if we look at what I would want to see as a gender lens, we might find that there would be circumstances where those businesses that would be suffering from a loss, and which businesses we would then be subjecting by assuming that they have the same contextual experiences, access to loans, the kind of workload that they have. Madam Speaker, wearing a gender lens, we would find that a lot of the businesses that might indeed have been making losses might be doing so because of the general structural arrangement, not only of access to loans in banks, which, Madam Speaker, we know as we have continued to try to improve this, but also because of the kind of role assignments and indeed that which might prevent them from getting the kind of success or profits that they would make. So, Madam Speaker, as I then encourage us, and particularly I would like to encourage the committee to take this into account, I would like then to come, Madam Speaker, to what I found very profound and powerful from the chair, as he highlighted a lot of what I see as very, very important milestones or achievements or what the committee has raised in this financial bill. He mentioned public participation, and he indicated, Madam Speaker, that the public participation and the stakeholder input was given a weighty and extremely important consideration. And he indicated that the memorandum that came, which really were rich, were came in through the newspaper. I once again, Madam Speaker, feel that this is good, but I would like to encourage, Madam Speaker, the National Assembly and the committee that when we are considering public participation and a matter that we ourselves say we have this time sought to simplify, it would be useful to remember that there are modes of communication that will exclude to a large extent the category that I'm thinking of this afternoon, Madam Speaker, the women. And so, Madam Speaker, as I conclude, I just would like to say that we are in the era and time of COVID-19 impact, and the country is outraged that we have teenage pregnancies, Madam Speaker, and they look at the figures and see Nairobi has 11,734, Kakamega 6,000, and Madam Speaker, because I see that the light is red, I'd just like to emphasize that it is not an accident that when people are confined, the girl's dilemma is different, is painful, and requires a special lens as we look at it. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support.
Well said, Honorable Lodwell. Let's have the member for Tigania West, Honorable Kanyuithia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to what my colleagues have been discussing this afternoon, the support to the committee report, as I also thank Chairman Limo for ably presenting this particular report in a very simplistic way that most of us were able to understand the content. Honorable Speaker, I know for sure that if we do not raise revenue, we may not be able to appropriate any money that we passed the other day. So there is need for us to raise revenue. As I listened to many speakers speak this afternoon, Honorable Speaker, I was wondering where do we get money from? And I looked at international trade as one of the ways that countries get money, and this is affected. I also looked at donors and philanthropists, they are also affected. We are also, in terms of taxes and levies, Honorable Speaker, we have serious impact because of the COVID-19, among other disasters that we've gone through. In terms of the changes in the money markets, we are also affected negatively this time around. And Honorable Speaker, in terms of liquidation of assets and others, we still are affected. We may not have reached that extent. So we may not have many ways of raising money, and that is why I'm sure the committee struggled to try and find out exactly how do we raise revenue for purposes of appropriating this revenue and realizing the many proposals that we made in the budget. Honorable Speaker, I want to laud the committee, first of all, for extending the brackets. What this basically did, it gave some relief to those very, very low earning, and also opened up the brackets upwards for those who are struggling within the industry that probably that gives up the housing, or rather income tax limits that were given to the housing sector. Honorable Speaker, when you look at the issue of corporate taxes, I want to agree that indeed it is a very good relief, an important relief to those who do not even know how to put together their tax returns in time, and also those who have not been able to declare taxes, revenue to the Kenya Revenue Authority. That 1% of gross turnover is going to assist a lot in increasing the revenue that we are going to raise, and therefore it is going to help us to have even more money. Coming to the businesses that the youth are engaged in, and especially in terms of the e-business, the digital world. Honorable Speaker, I would like to go for taxing the digital businesses. However, I would like us to apply the decree that we do not tax the businesses owned or run by our youth. So exempt the youth and tax the businesses, and that will generate some revenue, and it will give us some leeway for the youth to continue being more creative and creating employment, which we have not been able to do as a government, which we have not been able to do as a country. Despite the fact that we are training them and educating them and discharging them into joblessness, that will help them to continue. I believe there is such a provision that youth should be given some exemption, and that is what I'm saying. Let us tax the businesses, but exempt the businesses that are owned or run by the youth of this country. Honourable Speaker, I would like to thank the committee for avoiding taxation on retirement benefits. Retirees, Honourable Speaker, have already suffered a huge blow because they are not earning the much they were earning when they were in employment. And in this case, therefore, it is important for us to look at how can we deal with the issue of supporting them even more. If our country was rich, Honourable Speaker, I believe what we could do is even create facilities for the retirees to be more comfortable so that they can enjoy their final days in this world. So taxing their benefits was really painful. And wherever we went during our visits to our people, they have been asking us, why are you going the way of taxing the little money that we get from the government, irrespective of how little it is, and the commitments that they already have. I would like to emphasize that, Honourable Speaker, they do not only have commitments of their own, some of them are already shouldering commitments of others who are related to them. As they were used to, still, what has really changed is the scale at which they are supporting what they used to support. And therefore, it is important for us to consider not to tax the retirement benefits. Honourable Speaker, I would like to bring out some contradiction that comes up in terms of the savings that probably we may make vis-a-vis the taxation that we are coming up with. Honourable Speaker, when you look at this country as a country that is heavily relies on fuel energy for energy, and therefore we are taxing the LPG gas. And on the other hand, we have also heavily taxed the equipment or the utilities that we buy from outside this country, like the biogas burners and others which use renewable energy. It means, therefore, the adoption of the renewable energy option is going to remain low, and we are also going to curtail most of the users of LPG. We need to look at the gains versus the losses. We are likely to lose a lot more of the fuel wood, and that means a lot more of the forest in the advent of trying to increase our forest cover to 10%, that we may be able to be in line with the international agreements. Honourable Speaker, I would like to emphasize the point that disclosure, the voluntary disclosure of taxes is important for this country, and for many people who have not been able to organize their taxes to the government, and therefore that gives us an opportunity. When it comes to EPZ and what we can get from EPZ, that has been limited at 20%. I would like to say that many of us may not really realize the importance of this, and the fact that this is recognized and increased to 50% enables this country to benefit from EPZ. What is produced at EPZ mainly goes out of this country. And therefore, increasing the accessibility to 50% is going to help us to even improve the materials that we have, the textiles and apparels that we have, the opportunities that we have to change and focus on buying Kenya in terms of building Kenya. In terms of private-public partnership in infrastructure, we would like to have this as a test case, because this might give us a major relief in terms of financing infrastructure in future. When we have private partners establishing road network or railway network, and therefore changing in terms of through toll station, it is going to help us a lot. So this is coming in as a classical example of what we could probably adopt as a mechanism for developing infrastructure in this country. So I support that, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I would like also to support the fact that this particular revenue, the report adheres very closely to Article 201 of the Constitution, read closely with Article 114, which basically looks at to and fro's in terms of consultation and the openness and accountability and public participation. We were given a list of so many institutions that have submitted their memoranda so that they can be able to participate in the budget making. So even as we move in that particular direction, in the spirit of participation, in the spirit of equitability, In the spirit of raising resources and sharing these resources across the country, we need to ask ourselves, how are our people? And I want to point at the plight of our people in two ways. First of all is in feeding our people. We are a nation that suffers from hunger once so often. And our people right now are suffering in the advent of COVID-19 because of what they need to eat. Putting a duty on maize flour is killing our people further. It is important for us to keep that out of the taxation so that our people can be able to feed themselves. On the other hand, when it comes to housing and affordable housing, the principle of affordable housing, Honorable Speaker, speaks to the fact that we should have cheap, more accessible housing. When we tax revenue on, when we tax any proceeds that lead to reduction in, to acquisition of housing, we are condemning our people to live in polythene bags for a very long time. If we look at our neighbors, we don't even need to go far. We need to look at our neighbors. How many countries have their populations living in polythene bags apart from Kenya? And that is really serious for us. As a country, we need to be careful how we manage these issues. Finally, Honorable Speaker, I would like to highlight that it is important for KRA to do business here, to build capacity, and to move out and get revenue, even in supporting the others. But as they build businesses, as they build capacity, and as they go out there to give their skill, and they take
The Honorable Denita Gatti.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity to really support the various proposals and really thank the chair, Honorable Limo. Madam Speaker, I think the people of Kipkelion East are very lucky to have Honorable Limo as their member of parliament. I find him, Honorable Speaker, quite knowledgeable on this issue. Madam Speaker, as I support the proposals, I want to also say that this finance bill 2020 is basically a very fair bill. And Madam Speaker, I take special recognition, especially when it comes to the issue of the committee or treasury really dropping that component of taxing pensioners. Madam Speaker, in this time and era, we cannot afford to actually tax pensioners. If you see around, Madam Speaker, if you look around, you'll realize that most of our pensioners are people who actually were not even earning a lot of money. And Madam Speaker, I was watching recently on Citizen TV that aired a story of a very old man who actually was getting a net pension of about 20,000, and then he already had accumulated a lot of issues. And so what he was actually taking home after he does his payments was basically a mere 3,000. Madam Speaker, for me, it is a very great honor that the committee and the treasury really have dropped. And if you look around, Madam Speaker, I also have a memorandum that I had been issued to actually present to this House from the community of persons with disabilities in this country. And Madam Speaker, I'm happy that we are discussing this, dropping of this, this aspect of taxation of pension before I present that memorandum and present the petition to this House, and I'm happy that it has gone. Madam Speaker, persons with disabilities who are basically within this bracket, who are completely unemployed, who are completely unbanked, who are completely everything, and they're not even employed. Where do those people, and if anything, Madam Speaker, they get the little money that is there. So even them, to be subjected to a taxation at the end of the time, Madam Speaker, I think this is not something that should be happening now. Ideally, they currently were not even in the pensionable, taxable bracket. So why would that actually even happen now that we are, and yet we are facing, a lot of challenges. So, Madam Speaker, that is the major reason why I would support the proposals and support the finance bill and congratulate. Madam Speaker, again, if you look at the budget that we have in this country in respect to the people that I represent that are persons with disabilities. The budget for people with disabilities in this country has constantly remained there. It is just a flat budget. It is about 400 million. It is, I don't know what the plans we have to increase the budget that is going to persons with disabilities in this country, Madam Speaker. Persons with disabilities in this country have consistent and persistent needs. And Madam Speaker, when we are talking about cushioning the vulnerables, who are more vulnerable in this country than persons with disabilities? Because, Madam Speaker, they are constantly requiring wheelchairs, they are constantly requiring care, they are constantly requiring, so many of these things that persons with disabilities use that we have not really taken so much interest, Madam Speaker, in this country to do. And to invest in them. Madam Speaker, I would wish that even as we move forward in our future budgeting, Madam Speaker, the Honorable Limo, and I think next year, he may have to sit down and look at the budget that goes to the Ministry of Labor that basically trickles down through the National Council for Persons with Disabilities. It is a completely small budget, Madam Speaker, that does not even reach the very need for persons with disabilities. And Madam Speaker, that is what I'm making as a case in this House, because they have sent me to actually look at the budget and see that it does not increase, while other budgets, look at the budgets that go to health. I know healthcare is huge in this country, but the budget that goes to taking care of the needs of persons with disabilities in this country has constantly been the same. Sometimes it drops down, Madam Speaker, and then sometimes it just remains flat. So we have never seen, as people with disabilities community in this country, a budget that is extremely, fair to us as persons with disabilities. So, Madam Speaker, it is my humble plea that as we move forward next year, looking at the budget, the honorable member can actually, we will engage him, Madam Speaker, to ensure that our budget really goes up, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I'm also happy and supporting these finance bills simply because of the young people in this country. Madam Speaker, the budget, if it proposes to waive taxation to business owned by young people in this country, Madam Speaker, that is a welcome move. If you look at businesses, Madam Speaker, that young people have, they're not major businesses that we can say, because our young people, just as persons with disabilities, Madam Speaker, are completely not having jobs that they can really say, we want to be taxed. They are doing borders. Madam Speaker, I come from the county of Migori, and Migori from Rongo until Sebania border, where I come from, Madam Speaker, our young people are in the border business, or small kind of businesses, Madam Speaker. We must, as a country, provide atmospheres that young people can really look at jobs and serious, coming up with businesses that are taxable. Lastly, Madam Speaker, I want to actually also talk about the issue of minimum wage in this country. Madam Speaker, I want to link that issue because, Madam Speaker, I've lived out of this country and I've studied and worked there. Madam Speaker, and I remember we were students together, Madam Speaker, when you were at Washington University, and I was this side of New York. Madam Speaker, you know that minimum wage is not defined very well in this country. And if we compare, for example, in the United States, where, for example, a person can say, you work 1 hour, you earn $70 or $80 or 100 shillings. Madam Speaker, I think that is an issue that we also need to bring on board. So that, Madam Speaker, in this country, even work that we do per hour or per month or per week is work that you can quantify and equate to the amount of money that really you deserve. Madam Speaker, we do not have a serious framework that basically also looks at the issue of how much work labor you put in and how much we earn. And that is why, Madam Speaker, we do not have a clear structure on how then we can look at the issue of quantifying the work that we do. So, Madam Speaker, having quickly said that, allow me to really say that I support the Finance Bill 2020, and especially on the issue of persons with disabilities and the issue of taxation for pensioners, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me to end it there. Thank you.
Well said, Honorable Gatti. Dr. Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. At long last, I get the opportunity. I must thank you. Madam Speaker, I've been listening to my colleagues make contribution on this bill. And I want to say really a lot of good things have been said. and I really try to just add a value so that I don't have to use the 10 minutes, but see which areas have not been canvassed by many members. But let me start by really appreciating the committee, Madam Speaker. The committee has done a good job. And I also want to appreciate Kenyans, Madam Speaker. From the list of those who sent input into this bill, we can see really public participation was very effective. And I must thank Kenyans for having such an interest in this important bill. Madam Speaker, looking at the proposals, the tax proposals, we must agree, Madam Speaker, that the Treasury together with the committee have really done a commendable job. Looking at the times, and these are very challenging times, Madam Speaker, it is very difficult to have such a finance bill, which is so simple at a time like this, when we expect people to collect more money so that we finance the emergencies coming with COVID-19 and finance other regular development programs, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, when you look at what has happened, we really must say the committee has done a good job together with the Treasury, and it's going to be very easy for Kenya. Actually, when I was asked about this bill, in simple terms, I said, this time, we didn't have really major losers in terms of budgeting, because some of the things being proposed here are very mild as a way of ensuring that we cushion Kenyans against the effects of COVID-19. The issue of rental income, this is just a mention this passing because it has really been mentioned. Rental income of 10%, this one of the basic principles of good taxation, Madam Speaker, is simplicity. So this is just to make it very simple that if you are collecting rent up to 15 million, just pay 10% and forget about it. You don't have to do a lot of tax returns. Come the end of the year, you don't require to do any returns, and it becomes easier. But Madam Speaker, there is the issue of companies which are making losses being required to pay a 1% gross turnover. These are very complicated matter, Madam Speaker, because imagine a company is making losses and then they're expected to pay tax. And I think really it's something we really need to consider. I would want to see how much analytical work had gone into this, Madam Speaker, because I'm wondering if a company is making losses and you want to pay them to pay a tax of 1% of the gross turnover, then the question is, where do they get the money to pay? But at the same time, you also need to ask yourself, if a company has been making losses year in, year out, and they never close, then could it also be a situation of cooking books, that they don't pay taxes? And to me, this is really the issue we need to look at as we analyze this finance bill. And I want to believe maybe the second point could be the most important, that companies are really playing around with their books of accounts so that they don't pay tax. So when we bring up the issue of gross turnover of 1%, Madam Speaker, then more likely companies will come out and start paying taxes. On the issue of the digital market, I agree. I listened to the members when they're talking about the youth being really disadvantaged. But to me, I would want to hear more analysis on this, where we can say, Madam Speaker, out of that digital market, what proportion or what share of that market is being occupied by the youth? Because if they're occupying only about 10%, Madam Chair, then the argument about protecting the youth doesn't come up. For example, if you take Uber and look at the kind of money they collect, because you have all now moved to Uber, would it be fair not to tax Uber just because they're in digital market, because you want to save the youth who might only be getting 10% of the market share? So to me, the most important bit is, let's look at the market share. And if most of the share goes to the youth, then, Madam Speaker, there might be need to reconsider the issue of taxation of that particular issue. Madam Speaker, the other issue, when we analyze the budget, and we passed the Committee of Supplies report today's afternoon, the issue is the budget must be funded, Madam Speaker. And when we analyzed during the budgeting process, we did ask ourselves, how come that in this country, we're having economic growth every year, but tax collection is going down? So the question is, where the economy is growing, the expectation is that revenue collection should also be increasing. But when you look at what is happening in this country, it is going down. And some of the reasons we were giving for not collecting the expected percentage in terms of GDP, one was tax leakages. That when we say we don't collect because there are so many holes where the money goes. And there is need, even as we discuss this finance bill, Madam Speaker, to make sure that we minimize tax leakages, the revenue, so that whatever we collect is applied to the right development programs. In that case, then we'll be able to improve collection. The second issue, Madam Speaker, which came out, was the issue of tax exemption. And that's why I must thank the chair, Honorable Limo, that time has come when this country, we must reduce tax exemptions. Because some of the items we are exempting from tax, Honorable Speaker, make us not collect the amount required. So time has come when we must only exempt tax on essential services and goods. I like the idea of people saying zero rate maize flour, because that's a basic need. Zero rate, some like kerosene or gas, because that will help with issues of afforestation. So I think the whole issue of the listing of items which have been tax exempt, we need to look at that list again, Honorable Speaker, so that those ones which are not essential, we get them out of that list. And then we tax them. And after taxing them, Honorable Speaker, then we use the revenue collected to target Kenyans who are vulnerable. So that you target vulnerable Kenyans, rather than where you have a blanket list where a majority of the Kenyans are enjoying that, and they are not even vulnerable. In that case, you improve tax targeting, Honorable Speaker. In that case, then you will be having the country, and more likely you'll be able to have more resources going to the right area. Honorable Speaker, the issue of excise duty on alcoholic drinks, which has been reduced in terms of the content, the alcoholic content. We are saying we've been taxing anything above 10% was being taxed. Now it is being reduced to 8%, meaning we are bringing more people to that bracket. And my Honorable Speaker, those of us who have background, who are students of economics, we call this sin tax. And really, there should be no sympathy when you're applying sin tax, because this is an option. You can decide not to drink, and you don't die. So the more you drink, the more you should be taxed, so that you help Kenyans who are disadvantaged. So to me, I think this is an area, Honorable Speaker, where we would want to say that the fact that you are now bringing in it to 8%, then you widen the bracket and more people will be taxed. My last point, Honorable Speaker, so that other people can also contribute, is the issue of if we want to collect more money in this country, I don't think now we need to increase the tax rates, Honorable Speaker. We need to bring more people into the tax bracket, so that those Kenyans who should be paying Kenya tax and are not paying, we now open the doors for them to come in, so that we tax more people and then reduce the tax rate, and then Kenyans can enjoy reduced tax rates, but at the same time, increase collection because more people are paying. If we go that way, Honorable Speaker, then this economy will be able to grow and we will be able to support our programs. But at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker, and I always say it, taxation is a good evil and we can't avoid it. So Kenyans must be ready to pay taxes so that we grow the economy and grow our welfare. With those remarks, I support, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Lemos Kimunya.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to start by congratulating the committee for a job well done. When you look at the proposals from Treasury and you look at the list of the stakeholders who appeared within the report and the diversity of the views, to actually get the balance right is no mean task. So I want to congratulate the committee for having struck that balance in terms of saying, yes, this we can live with, this we can't live with, and I believe the stakeholders will understand for now. Madam Speaker, I'm also very happy as I listen to the people and I also read the report, because there are some two pet projects that I partly was responsible for introducing into the law. The non-taxation of pensioners in 2007. And for some reason, I don't know who gave the impression to Treasury that you can now start going back. You know, since 2007, I believe in 2016, even some more provisions were added. And then in 2020, you are now going back and saying that the people who've been enjoying that benefit after working so hard for the country should now be taxed. You know, it's totally misinformed, and I'm glad the committee has proposed to delete it, and we shall be here to support the committee. Similarly, The issue of the maize flour and the unga and all that, we all know the sensitivities around it, and I'm glad that when I look at the amendments, proposed amendments to Clause 12, that matter will now be returned to status quo. My other pet project was on the CSR projects. It happens everywhere. In the US, you donate, whatever thing you donate to charity, you can claim a tax rebate on it. We did extensive consultation, I believe it's the same 2007 or 2006, and said anyone who constructs public projects can recoup that money through taxation to encourage all these foundations, the Safaricom foundations, the Chandera foundations, and other companies to actually donate or invest in public social projects rather than having to just give the tax and waiting for the government to do those projects. And it encouraged quite a number of them to do that. So seeing now Treasury going and saying, from now on we are not going to do it, you're basically saying we've had enough of private sector investing in social work. Let everyone pay tax and government will do it, which doesn't help. So I'm glad the committee has supported, is actually coming back and saying let's maintain the status quo. Which brings into question the issue of, yes, we need money. But unfortunately, somebody is being lazy at the Treasury. Just looking at, yes, we can remove these exemptions to raise money without looking at why was it introduced in the first instance. Has that rationale changed? Because if it hasn't changed, then you don't need to rock the boat. The taxation of UNGA, the taxation of the pensioners, the taxation of the CSR, the rationale has not changed. And I think that's something that we need to send a message to Treasury that, yes, much as you need the money, let us also look at collecting that money in a way that does not promote inequity. Madam Speaker, when I look at Clause 33, and I know the committee has also seen on the report, there's an intention to change the agency fee that's payable to KRA from up to 2% to make it a minimum of 2%. Now, the effect of that is obviously that whatever KRA collects, they will be given 2% as a minimum. Now, that's at the national. When it comes to the county, it's awarded a maximum of. So, of course, there's an inconsistency between the two rates. One for the county, up to a maximum of 2%. For the national, a minimum of 2%. I've had these negotiations with KRA for a long time, since when I was in Treasury. And the issue was, if you can collect more money, you'll be able to finance your KRA budget from a certain amount. It should not be dependent on the quantum of the money they generate. They have a fixed budget for salaries, they have a fixed budget for other things. And what we want to avoid, and we've seen this happen, especially in the public sector, immediately you give this corporation that you can keep a minimum of a certain percentage. They end up accumulating all that money, and because the free cash flows are available, you end up now with some pet projects that are not tied to the core mandate. We've seen the push and pull between central bank and the Treasury, that they are holding so much money, can they surrender it to the Treasury? And they would want to justify they want to do some projects. And I think that's the danger. I want to persuade the chair that even as we look, let us rethink whether we want to allow KRA to have a minimum amount that they will keep, or rather we should just continue pegging it that we will not allow them to take more than 2%, because that encourages them to increase their turnover, to increase their volumes. Immediately we'll give them a minimum of 2%, then when they have satisfied their budget, why do they need to go out to increase the overall tax available for the national? We could actually be shooting ourselves in the foot by guaranteeing them a safety net, then they don't have to do anything more. But by pegging it at not more than, then it means they need to work harder to actually collect more revenue or to be given more agency fees. The other thing I want to urge the committee, and I believe the Honorable Makali has mentioned, and one other member, this issue of the minimum tax. It's good to say, yes, we need everyone to pay tax. But we already have a taxation regime that allows companies to accumulate tax losses and recoup them against future profits for up to 10 years. So there are companies probably that are in their 4th year, 5th year, 6th year. Then from tomorrow, you then say everyone must pay minimum tax. You end up with two regimes, tax regimes, that are total variance. Is this new introduction of minimum tax administratively manageable? Or are we going to just have cases after cases? Because I have accumulated, say company A has accumulated tax losses of a certain amount. They know they've started making profit, they're supposed to recoup, and all of a sudden you are saying they must pay the 1% as a minimum tax. You are telling them, might as well treat them like the other guys within the turnover tax, within the threshold of the first 50 million. It's something that needs to be done, to be looked at before implementation, to actually see whether it will lead to more administrative hiccups or whether it will actually meet the intended objectives. I also want to ask, perhaps it's something that I just want to reemphasize. I've heard here people saying this digital tax will hurt the youth, will hurt startups. If my reading of the bill is correct, and I believe from the committee report, I believe you're on the same page. This tax is meant for non-resident companies, not for Kenyan companies. The Kenyan companies will pay the tax on the 1.5%, but they have the opportunity of recouping that tax on their final tax bill. So if they're already paying tax, then it doesn't matter, right? Because it's not additional tax, it's just part of their tax, but it will be payable at the transactional point. But there are so many companies, and we are going digital, and we know now within this COVID, we are ordering food from outside. And all other purchases. We are losing a lot of revenue as a country, and that revenue is accruing to companies out there. And let's support the committee and Treasury on this, fellow members. On tax-exempt, tax amnesty, I just want to appeal to the taxpayers in this country, especially those who may have been caught by the demonetization of the 1,000 shilling. Now that money is in the system, perhaps they can take advantage of this amnesty. But I would want this House to pronounce itself on Treasury that this is the last amnesty, because the more we keep saying there will be an amnesty or creating an expectation that even next year there will be another amnesty, then we are telling people don't pay tax, wait for the next amnesty. I just want to have that. On tolls, Madam Speaker, I would also want to ask that
wind up in a minute, Honorable Kimunya.
There's been several donations. On the tolls, thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to urge the committee to discuss with the Committee on Infrastructure, because much as we're having the tolls because of the overpass, we need to capture this within the overarching law, the PPP Act, so that any charges and tolls will be captured within that law. So I see this as a temporary measure. And lastly, quickly, we need to have Treasury at the earliest opportunity recalculate the deficit or the net effect of the finance bill and the appropriation bill, or both the two acts, the Finance Act and Appropriation Act, and report to us earliest by July. What is the net impact of what we've done with the Finance Act, what we have done within the Appropriation Act, if there's a gap, so that we are aware of it before we start progressing on the country. And I hope this country can make, this House can make that as a resolution, that we need to start the year knowing where we are in terms of any net deficit or net deficit surplus arising from all the changes we have made from this House. Madam Speaker, and thanks for the magnanimity, and I beg to support.
Well said, Honorable Kimunya. Let's have the Honorable Mboni Mwalika, Kitui Rural.
Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to say one or two things concerning this bill. Madam Speaker, is a fact that we are making this bill in a very difficult situation when the economy and the world economy as a whole is facing challenges due to coronavirus. But, Madam Speaker, we need to understand some of these proposals are made to expand the tax base. For example, the 1% minimum tax on turnover. Madam Speaker, it's very obvious that some companies have been operating in this country for the last 10 years without declaring profit. And you start wondering, how are they been surviving? It's obvious, and people know that a lot of companies who do not declare profit, they have two sets of accounts book. One making profit, the other making losses. And therefore, they don't pay tax. Yet, they are also benefiting from services and infrastructure, which are being financed by the people who pay tax. So to me, it's important for them to pay tax. And the proposal on this, we are supposed to collect 21 billion shillings. So let them also pay tax like any other Kenyans. On the issue of digital marketplace taxation, Madam Speaker, this digital marketplace is purely controlled by foreigners. 60% of the sector is controlled by foreigners. It only 40% which is controlled by Kenyans. And as Mr. Honorable Munya said, this is a deductible tax. You pay the 1% as a resident company, then at your final tax pay returns, you deduct what you have paid as 1% from DST, that in digital service tax. But more importantly, we also need to think about is these foreigners, non-resident companies, they don't pay VAT. Well, our companies pay. This one disadvantages our companies in terms of competition because their services, if you look at Uber services are cheaper than any other service provider in Kenya. So we also need to think about how do we bring in VAT also to tax those services so that even our companies can be able to and also the country be able to benefit. In fact, I was doing some calculation. This sector, the transaction is around 130 billion. Now, if you put 14% on the foreign, the share of the foreign non-residents, then we can collect 12 billion shillings from VAT from these companies. In the issue of maize zero rate of maize flour. Madam Speaker, we are in a very difficult situation. In fact, if you go to country bus, most of the vehicles which have been ferrying people, now they are ferrying food from our villages because people here cannot afford. And if we can zero rate milk and bread, which we can do without, then we need to zero rate maize flour. So I support that. Madam Speaker, there's another issue of VAT on spares for aeroplanes and helicopters. This sector is grounded completely. In fact, I was reading another article. The Association of Domestic Carriers estimates the cost of reviving the sector in terms of paying, buying spares and services of the aircraft to be at the tune of 3 billion. In fact, they were requesting the government if the government can give them soft loan so that they can be able to finance those activities. Therefore, we need to think about how we can even create a fund to help this sector, because this sector is very important. It helps us. It helps the tourist sector. Madam Speaker, I don't want to labor so much on this, but we also need to think about short-term and medium-term measures to reduce our budget deficit. Because why are we doing tax proposals? Is to finance the budget. And our deficit now stands at 800 billion. Now, one of the measures I was thinking is to actualize single treasury account. This is an account which every parastatal and government agency is supposed to deposit is or excess finances in Central Bank of Kenya. And that money, the government can be able to access it and finance activities without even borrowing from the domestic market. So I think this is one thing which the Treasury needs to actualize immediately, because it's already a law. They should be able to do this. The second one is fiscal consolidation, reduce wastage in government so that we can also reduce the budget, the deficit, concentrate on ongoing projects instead of bringing new ones, and also avoid, and also we also need, in the long run, we also need to think about restructuring and downsizing of the government, because the government is very huge. Look at the county government, you know, everybody, even when you look at the county government, 70% of the budget is going to current expenditures, and only 30% going to development. So we need to look at how do we downsize the government so that we can be able to have more money for development. The other measure is to reduce tax expenditure. The tax expenditure in this country stands at 6%, when the global stands at 3%. So if you can be able to reduce the incentives, exemptions by 3 percentage points, we'll be able to save over 300 billion. That's the money which we are even asking the foreigners to lend us. So we should be able to look at that and reduce it so that at least we can be able to get money. The last one is funding of the KRA. I think because I'm a member of the Finance Committee, the many times we have met with the with the KRA, they have given us the impression that they are actually underfunded, and therefore they cannot meet their obligations. We need to fund KRA, but also KRA need to adopt ICT system in tax collection, because people are moved from the traditional way of doing things to digital. So KRA needs to move from that. But even when you look at the tax revenue as a percentage of GDP, it has been declining since 2013, when it was 21%. Now it stands at 16%. Meaning what? Meaning there's a lot of tax which is not being, revenue which are not being collected. So with those few remarks, I support the bill. Thank you very much.
Very well, the member for Kitui Rural. Next on my request list of members is the member for Ndiwa, Honorable Martin Owino. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate this time to contribute to this, and also I want to thank the committee chaired by Honorable Limo. Madam Chair, I do know that we are looking for money to service our budget. And we are looking for money from people and corporations or companies. But it is true that the country is so distressed at this moment. Household income, even businesses are down. But I want to say something here which is a bit off what many people have been saying. Number one, nobody, never, should ever think of taxing retirees, because life has majorly 4 quarters. Quarter 1, year 1 to 25, you struggle with your life, you grow, and you do education. Quarter two, 25 to 50, you try to raise a family, and you work. Quarter three, 50 to 75, that's where these retirees fall. That quarter, there's only what people nourish, the ill of life, the diseases, diabetes, hypertension, cancers, all that in that quarter. So you can't ask them to pay taxes again when they have been paying all their lives. So whoever thought that in Treasury, that's sick, really. Point two, which I want to make, is the voluntary taxation. I think this is a good idea because it's going to reduce corruption or chasing people here and there, causing anxieties, cat and mouse game. So I think that's a good thing to do. So people can come voluntarily and pay their taxes if they had lapses in them. Number three, the toll-free. Many people have alluded to this, Madam Chair. It succeeds in developed countries because of the usage, the proper usage of those taxes, of those toll stations. But here we have a history where we had toll booths, people making their own receipts and collecting money, and you never see them. So I challenge the Finance Committee to define this properly. Because if it is PPP, which is public-private partnership, then it should be defined. Is it government agency and private company, or is it public, which means the users paying into this to pay back what the private investor have put? If that is the case, then how that money should be handled must have a framework. Otherwise, we have lost money, and commuters have suffered, because once you are using those structures, you'll be paying directly or indirectly. The fares will go up. At this time of COVID-19, after the project is finished, it will be very difficult for people to manage. The other point is the EPZ, which is a good idea, but Madam Speaker, I am not for the 2.5% taxation. Where people were using used clothes, they were cheap, killing our industries, yes, but this time clothing has become a secondary issue. What people are crying for is food. So if you put 2% on what you want to give them, even those who are in business will load something, then the clothing which we are beautifully manufacturing in this country will be beyond the reach. So at the later stage, I would suggest we do 1% for people to afford. The digital taxation is a good thing. What should come with it, Madam Chair, is that when you pay because you are using digital platforms, the money you pay to the government should be plowed back to help in infrastructure. For example, I've opened 4 ICT hubs in my constituency. But the power fluctuations, the lack of internet, the road networks are not supporting the idea. So when people pay, let that payment come back to give ease of doing business in form of infrastructure. So it's a good idea, but how we use our taxes, that is where the problem is. And I hope as we try to raise revenue, Chair of the Finance Committee, I think there's a need also as a framework to see how these monies which are collected are plowed back to where they were collected from so that it can enable production. Now, exempting taxation from ambulance. Madam Speaker, ambulance is not just a metal moving something. They are loaded with commodities and supplies. I would like to see all medications exempted. Right now, those who are suffering from diabetes, cancers, and all this, the medications are too high because there are taxes on it. We, as a Committee on Health, we were surprised that there are taxations even on testing strips. So when we talk of this, let us look at the holistic view that all pertains to ambulatory care or evacuation, emergency medicine, are exempted from taxes so people can get relief quickly. Also, Madam Chair, the issue of people earning 15 million on rent and paying 10%, it's okay, but you'll agree with me that as they pay all this, the infrastructure around where those houses are, the roads may be having the largest potholes that you have never seen. Where do this money go from? Where can they come and improve where all these taxes are being collected? The same thing like the ICT I mentioned. So the issue of paying taxes is one. Using those taxes is another issue that I think should be looked into very careful. The zero rating of UNGA and all those rights, I think that has been talked enough. I should not repeat. I want to talk about the CSR. The idea of CSR is to improve or have a positive impact in a society where you're doing business. But Madam Chair, some corporations are doing directly the opposite. I have one in my constituency in Dewa, which is known for destroying roads, polluting air, has been building one simple dispensary for 7 years. So even as we give them tax exempt, we should look into really what are they doing as in those areas they're doing business. And if they're not doing much, then I think they should be put on heavy taxation and compensate where they're doing the business. The issue of 1%, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, does not make sense. If a company loses for several years, actually there's no company which will be in business losing stream. Somebody, one member here said they're cooking books, and that could be true. If you don't make profit, you have no reason of doing business. So if we say, oh, those companies who are going to be losing are going to pay 10%, then we are going to encourage companies to report losses in order to pay the minimum. So that should be changed at the third reading, I think, and I'll raise it up again there. Lastly, I want to encourage all of us to look in another direction. Raising money does not mean collecting more money from people, but it rather means cutting expenditures and using our resources frugally. And that is what I want to urge the executive government, where we give money. Frugal use of public resources is as good as raising more money. So with those, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Very well, good debate. The member for Diwa, and I'm sure you know the procedures, and you can raise your concerns in form of the best way in the next stage of the bill. Let me have the member for Molo, the Honorable Kimani Kuria.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for according me this opportunity. I would like to say I sit in the Finance Committee that's led by the Honorable Limo. And out of the two finance bills that we've done before, this was the most tricky one. At one point, we are looking at the suffering in the Kenyans. We want to have a budget that's going to revamp our economy. We want to collect money that will ensure that we protect the vulnerable from the effects of this COVID. And when we reopen the country, we want to be sure that our country moves forward. But at the same time, we do not want to overburden our citizens with more taxes and squeeze the blood and the water that's left out of them. And so I must admit, Madam Chair, this was a very tricky finance bill, but through our collective effort, we got where we are. From the onset, I would like to say, Madam Chair, that majority of Kenyans would like to pay their legal obligation in terms of taxes. They are willing to do that.
I know in the committees you address the chair.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. that most Kenyans are willing to pay their taxes. But what pains them is when that person who earns 40,000 shillings and pay payee out of it because it's compulsory gets to hear that someone has not paid millions and billions of shillings in terms of taxes. That money is not prudently spent by the executive. And from the onset, I would like to say that the executive must ensure that this money that we are collecting from our Kenyans is well spent. And when that happens, even this that we're talking about voluntary saying of how much you're supposed to pay obligations to KRA, people are going to be willing to even pay much more because they can see that they have better roads, that they have better, they don't have power outages, and the money that they spend is being used prudently, Madam Speaker. A lot has been discussed about the digital tax, and there are things I would like to demystify, Madam Speaker. That one, this tax is meant for non-resident companies. I'll give an example, Madam Speaker. The biggest taxi company in the world is called Uber. These Uber do not own any vehicles in this country. They are not even a registered business enterprise in Kenya. And yet, you can see how they came and destabilized and really took over the taxi business in Kenya. And yet, there was no place for us to touch them and tax them because they are not a registered company in Kenya. And so they were not paying taxes for all this time, and yet they drove our drivers out of business. And we are saying that those corporations that are outside there that generate income from Kenya, then through these digital platforms, then that income must be paid taxes. And if they are paying taxes, they don't need to be worried because that tax can be offset when they are filing their returns at the end of the financial year, Madam Speaker. So it is not an additional tax whatsoever. If you're paying your correct taxes, you don't need to be worried. And this even goes the discussions that is going to lead to some loss of jobs. Madam Speaker, I am tempted to believe that this will even increase some of the jobs that you have and you'll save some jobs. Let me give an example. If you go to some online platforms like Alibaba or like Amazon, these are the biggest supermarkets in the world. And majority of Kenyans have realized if you want to order a book or a computer or a phone or whatever else you want, if you order from those sites and it gets shipped to the country, and even some of these platforms have free shipping. You don't even pay any cost for shipping. Then you realize that that television set that would have cost 50,000 shillings, you have saved your 10 or 15,000 shillings. And therefore, that person who is paying rent at River Road or at Kirinyaga Road or wherever else it is, do not get to compete on price on this particular product. And that's why you're saying, Madam Speaker, these digital platforms that are doing this business in Kenya must pay their correct value of taxes, Madam Speaker. Kenya Revenue Authority, I must say, has been relying on traditional means of collecting taxes. And that is why, year after year, it never achieves the target. People have moved. You find people now hardly carry cash. You either swap your card or pay via M-Pesa or the other mobile platforms. And yet, KRA has relied on the traditional ways of following up on these defaulters. And that's why the committee was suggesting, could we increase the budgetary allocation of KRA so that they can invest in vibrant technology systems that will even catch the amount, a lot of money that's out there that's not taxed. I'll give you an example, Madam Speaker. If you spread any hate speech now on any of the social media platforms, you will have the NCIC. They have systems that will check on which word you've said that's against the act, and they even come and arrest you where you are. Then how come that Kenya Revenue Authority still relies on postal address when they want to summon you to pay your taxes? How come that they even rely on very old ways of trying to find out how much money you are owed to, you're supposed to pay as your tax obligations? We have people here in downtown, Madam Speaker, who their sales in a day are in millions of shillings. People have hardwares, people that sell, they appear like small items, but the value of the property they sell is in millions. And yet, that income is not captured anywhere in our tax system. So you find them having a lot of money, they're not paying even taxes, and that person who is earning a salary as little as almost 20,000, apart from now that we passed that we exempted that income tax for incomes less than 25,000. They are paying a tax, Madam Speaker. And that we were saying, let us increase budget allocation to KRA and task them to invest in real measures that are going to ensure they net those people that are not paying taxes and they ensure compliance so that we have enough money, Madam Speaker, to support the economy. A lot has been said about the issue of tax exemption and zero rating. And I have on this floor of the House said several times that we need to have a predictable business environment. That this financial year, we are zero rating this. The exact same product in the following year, less than 12 months later. Sometimes even before the gazettement of the with effective date, we take it back to tax exemption. And we're saying, for example, the move, the proposal, and that's why the proposal that we're now going to take maize flour and wheat flour back to zero rating, so that we make this business environment predictable. So that if you're going to open a milling factory, you are sure that this is the amount of money that you'll be paying, whether it's in terms of taxes, so that again, 2 months down the line, you're forced to close down because there was a change in tax laws that you're not even aware of. The toll tax on our road use, Madam Speaker, it is very important that people pay for the services that they use. And that is one of the principles of taxation. So if I am going somewhere and I want to go very fast, if I want to go at a particular speed, let me be allowed to go at that speed. Let me be allowed to use that road that I want will take me faster. And if that means me paying more and I'm willing to do that, let me do that. Other than taxing that border who is just using that bad road to construct a highway that they will never use. So for those that want to use those highways, let them pay for it. And again, let it also not be a pain so that you can also create those highways. And the bureaucracies of paying for that tax is so much that again we end up building a highway that no one is using, and the people that you should use that highway end up now going there to congest with the other small users of these other roads. In developed countries, Madam Speaker, when going through that highway, there is a camera that checks your registration number. That registration number is linked to your bank account, and automatically the tax that you're supposed to pay on using that road is deducted automatically from your bank account. And that is the model that we hope will be used on these highways. So that, Madam Speaker, if I want to go that express, let that poor person who does not even have the luxury of using it pay for it. And with that, Madam Speaker, I support this finance bill. Thank you.
Very well. That is okay. Money CPA. Let me have my member nominated, Ibrahim Sahal. Ibrahim Sahal, nominated member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And all the members, if I would just give advice, please let us avoid repetition, pursuant to our own standing orders. It's not even a must for you to use your 10 minutes. You can say less, but of course with value, so that we can still observe our own standing orders. Thank you. Honorable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, the bill proposes a new tax to be known as minimum tax. Madam Speaker, that has its own complication for the people of small-scale traders, juakali artists, other small businesses, and mamambogas. Madam Speaker, during this trying time of COVID-19, whereby the economy has collapsed, it will take time to revive. Madam Speaker, as Kenyans, it seems as if we are discouraging our own people by doing businesses. Madam Speaker, if we introduce this tax to these small-scale businesses, it seems as if they are going to lose hope and abandon their businesses. They cannot pay their premises, their workers, and it will have an impact on our fellow Kenyans. Madam Speaker, recently I have seen some young youth who were blacklisted. Their businesses were blacklisted just simply because they were late to pay their tax in time. Are we encouraging our youth to do their businesses or discouraging them? By doing that, Madam Speaker, we are encouraging our youth to become thugs. And that is why we have a lot of insecurity in this city. Madam Speaker, I really, really discourage these taxes being put on these small scale business people. Unlike installment tax, which is an advance tax, Madam Speaker, that one has not been specified, and I don't see the reason why they call it an advance tax that can be applied against the future of liability. Madam Speaker, the other one I want to talk about is the proposal 6 to subject to tax income earned by financial institutions, fund managers, investments, banks, and building society, which respect to home ownership plan deposit. This will reduce the income available for distribution to depositors as interest, negatively impacting their ability to purchase homes, and adversely negates the effort by the government to promote affordable housing in the Big Four agenda. The other one I want to add, Madam Speaker, is the tireless men and women who give services to our country upon retirement. Upon retirement, they are forced to unprecedented economic challenges. Madam Speaker, when you introduce tax to an old person who is already struggling with life, you are making him more peasant. And that is going to frustrate even us who are senior civil servants, senior politicians. When you retire, that means the small peanut you are getting from the government, it is taxed. And then you end up in losing your house, maybe unable even to pay your rent, maybe unable even to pay your bills, and that will really discourage the old people to retire. Thank you so much. I support.
You support. Very well. The member for Ijara, Honorable Nro Sophia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute to this committee report. First, I would like to appreciate the committee for the work they've done and the report they presented to this House. Madam Speaker, you told us not to repeat, but I want, with your permission, to repeat because I was sent by elders. I went to my constituency, and while I was in my constituency, I met with, after I finished my business, I met with elders, 20 of them. They called me, and one of the elders who was representing the entire group was about to break down and cry. And what he was talking about was basically issues of retirement benefit, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I know, and I want to appreciate the committee very much, including the minister, for dropping that taxation. But because I promised them, I must say this, and what they told me. They told me, when we were young and had a lot of energy, we worked for this country, and we laid the foundation. My daughter, we laid the foundation that you are enjoying today. Those were the words of an 80-year-old mzee in this country. And he said, in other countries, when we are seniors, people respect the seniors. They have social amenities for them. They have affirmative action for the seniors. And they give them an enabling environment for the seniors to live for the remaining years of their life. So, Madam Speaker, this I'm saying because I've promised that old man who is 80-year-old to say that what they told me. And I just want to say that the committee have thought very wisely by dropping that, because the cry was so much. Kenyans were crying all over. Elders were crying. Thank you so much, committee, for dropping that. I just want to talk about the LBGs. The LBG is really helping the environment. And we have seen as small businesses and the local communities introducing LBGs in this country, we have started reducing cutting of trees. Our environment has improved so much, but still the LBGs, taxation is a problem. And the other problem that we find in LBG business, Madam Speaker, is when you go as a customer to one of the LBGs and you buy your tank, the cylinder, the gas cylinder, and you buy that gas cylinder, what happens is there are restrictions and conditions that you can only get gas from that particular place where you bought the gas cylinder. That makes a challenge to the women and the small grassroots business people when the supplier of the same gas cylinder is not at their centers, their small centers, and they have others who are at the doorstep, but they cannot sell to them. This is my property. I can wear my T-shirt the day I want and remove it the day I don't want it. Now, when I have my gas cylinder, I bought it with over 5,000, 6,000 shillings, and you restrict me that you cannot go and buy gas from another shop, which is about 10 meters from me, and you subject me to go to take a matatu and to go to about 20, 30 kilometers to look for that gas. That is a problem. So we must look into that when we are trying to see how we can promote our business and the business of our small business community. Madam Speaker, we must be very creative in trying to raise resources for this country. We are looking at the traditional ways of raising resources. We do not want to go out of box, Madam Speaker. And as long as we don't want to go out of box and we just want to go in circle, trying to look at where can we raise resources and we leave things that can really give resources to this country and can transform this country. Madam Speaker, we are not investing in mining industry. And as long as we are not investing in the mining industry, we have a lot of natural resources in this country that if we look at the potential we have in this country, the mining industry can alone finance our budgets, Madam Speaker. But we are closing our eyes and we do not want to invest where investment is supposed to be required, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the other thing that we are not investing in heavily is livestock, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have a lot of livestock in this country, more than Botswana. And Botswana is financing all its budget from livestock and livestock product, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to ask the Finance Committee to look critically on those issues and suggest to relevant authorities on how to improve those sectors where we can raise a lot of resources that we can finance our budgets, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as it is now, we have a lot of resources, but the resources we have are not managed well, Madam Speaker. There's a lot of wastage and there's a lot of linkages, Madam Speaker. If we can close all that, the linkages and the wastage that we have in the government, then we will be able to save a lot of resources that we can use for other emergencies that may face this country in the future, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when you talk of an exemption on ambulances, it's a good thing. But Madam Speaker, health services in this country has become a huge problem in this country. It is very expensive for one to become sick in this country. And the resources that we see, we have seen people who have sold their houses, we have seen people who have sold everything, and today they are very poor because they have one person from their family who have been sick, and they have used all their resources to finance. So we are asking that don't look at ambulance. Ambulance is very, very small component of health services, Madam Speaker. Let's look holistically at all health services. Look at cancer patients. Madam Speaker, all the drugs of cancer are taxed. And we have many people in this country. If you go to my constituency, the number of cancer cases, you cannot believe, Madam Speaker. So we are saying, the Finance Committee and the chair, please, don't look at only that small bit of ambulance. You want to make us happy with ambulance. When I know my own family, I have 4 people who are very sick. And it's very expensive. So we are saying, let's look holistically at all the health services and let's reduce and let's have zero taxation on health element so that we can reach out to people who are vulnerable, who cannot afford health services, who cannot have health and insurance because they cannot afford. Madam Speaker, the other issue is, I'm very happy that the exemption on Kenya Defense Forces and Kenya Police Services on items, on equipment, materials, and machineries. Madam Speaker, let's not look at only those 2 departments. Let's look at all government departments that are giving service to this country. Because if we say that we are giving Ministry of Health, they go and buy vehicles, and the same money is being used for taxation. Then we are giving with this hand, and we are taking away with the other hand. Then we will not be able to give the adequate services that this country want to give to Kenyans. So what I'm saying is, when we are looking at an exemption, let's look holistically at all the ministries that are giving services to this country, Madam Speaker, be it health services, education, water, irrigation, and all that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I can see my time is running out. I want to conclude by saying that issues of road and issues of highways, when one of the committee members was contributing right before me, he said, you know, the border person contributes to the highways that are constructed and they do not use it. I agree with him 100%. The people who are in my villages down with their livestock, they are contributing to highways that they do not use. So when we are thinking of resource distribution, we must be very careful in resource distribution and allocation. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support with those concerns to be taken care of, Madam Speaker.
Well, say the member for Ijara. Let me have the member for Seme, Rabonikal Wabura.
Who are already overburdened by the effects of the pandemic. So I appreciate the work they have done. I'll not really repeat many things, but I'll put out a few things. On the public-private partnership and the issue of road tolls, Madam Speaker, this is a good thing, but we must remember that actually we've done this before. If you are on Mombasa, on Kisumu, Nairobi-Kisumu highway at Naivasha, we actually had a toll station. But actually, just because of graft, it actually didn't work. What they are doing, Madam Speaker, is collecting the money, keeping it, and then they just banned the station because they were now hiding the fact. So it's a good thing to do, but we must look at the issue of graft, the management of it, and I presume if the private sector is doing it, they'll probably be more keen. But in the past, it has not worked well because of graft. But I think it's a good idea, and I support it. I also want to just single out the issue of unclaimed financial assets. It is good to remove it from the Capital Markets Authority and leave it to the Unclaimed Financial Asset Authority. Madam Speaker, a lot of people invest and nobody knows they have invested. Even our savings, even the telephones we use, the amount of money that remains in them when somebody dies, it is unclaimed. So I think this is one authority that actually should be strengthened, and so that people can actually get their claims back, their relatives, if they do surface and finding ways of getting them. So I think that's a good thing that I've noted there. Madam Speaker, the amendment so that we are quite sure when to appeal to the Commission of Insurance is also a good thing. We cannot have things that are not properly timed. It's difficult. Our laws here will tell you that if things are not defined, you really cannot benefit. So that's a good thing to do. The Kenya Revenue Authority, the commission that they get, it really has to be capped. The fact that they get a commission on what they collect, I think encourages them collect more. And as some members said, they should actually go into modern ways of collection, because over the years, the percentage of the tax we collect as a GDP is actually going down. So they should be encouraged, but they should get to collect the tax. Madam Speaker, the Retirement Benefits Authority, the amendment so that they actually submit actual report. Madam Speaker, this is extremely important. In insurance and in pension schemes, if there's no proper actuarial studies, they always fail. And then they fail with people's money. In terms of pensions, they fail. And the only way is at every point, they should study whether the collection they are making, the investment they are making, actually are sustainable. And I think that is a good report I've seen there. Even if you look at NHIF, which is not a benefit scheme, but an insurance scheme, where you also need an frequent actuarial studies, we have gone into benefits that actually we cannot sustain. And if you ask what are the actuarial basis of this, you don't get it. So I think for the retirement benefit schemes, to put it in law is an extremely good thing. To look at the incomes, the income tax, this exhibits the contradiction we have, that you have a big budget and still you don't want to overtax our people because they are burdened. It is good that there is the lower level of taxation has actually little been removed and raised so that a lot of people are removed from the tax. That is a good thing that I support. The increasing the limit for payment in the rental income so that people pay a little less is actually something that is good and I support it. But at the same time, we are removing the incentives for home owners. So as I was saying, on the one hand, you are giving, and on the other hand, you are also taking away from people. But the worst bit of it was trying to tax pensioners. How can you do that in a country with a social protection policy that is trying and putting a lot of money to support vulnerable people? Then you take people who are near vulnerable and you start taxing them. So you are increasing the number of vulnerable people. So I think the committee did a good job on that. On the relieving people on VAT, again you see the contradiction. You actually zero rate bread, but you leave out unga. How can you do that? Maybe they were thinking that people get more unga, you get bread, but you will get your tax from the unga. But that is the one we should have looked at. Again, I agree with the committee that that is something we should look at. It's good that in the agricultural sector, they actually also zero-rated some inputs, some agricultural inputs like corn seed and so on. That is okay. In the health sector, I can't agree with the previous member more. Actually, in the health committee, we were surprised because I thought some time back, we actually attempted to remove taxes on the inputs on health. How can we tax health commodities and at the same time we are talking of universal health coverage? That is contradictory, absolutely contradictory. So I think the ambulance is good, but it's a small contribution. So yeah, so I think, in fact, if we can, we should look at that schedule and just see. We don't have much time, but we would have looked and just look at all the health inputs. That is the first step in reducing the cost of healthcare. On the EPZ, getting some of it in the domestic market, I think those products is good. It improves the local market. It improves the labor that we have locally. But also the other thing I've noticed, if you look at the products from the export processing zone, you can't believe they're made in this country. So if we bring some in, I think it will improve the quality of our input. Digital economy tax, there's no way we can get away. I supported some people, some colleagues were saying this is where the young people are. But all economy is moving to be digital. with this COVID, you have seen even getting food into your home, you order it digitally. If you leave this out, where are you going to get the taxation? We can just look at the rates, but that is the direction. We cannot get that out. Now, corporate social responsibility, well, I think giving them tax relief, the only danger is they then start to exaggerate the amount of money they put in the corporate social responsibility so that avoiding tax. But I think it's generally a good thing if we go into the details and we work out the details so that we don't get graft getting that, is a good thing. But let me just say, didn't want to say much, but let me just say one thing. Even if we collect all these taxes and we do not fight graft, we are wasting time. Actually, if you look at our figures, we say 30% of our taxes go into graft. But if you look at our deficit, it is also exactly 30%. 804 billion out of 2.6 or so. That's 1/3. So if we could just somehow eliminate graft, we wouldn't even have a deficit. With that, Madam Speaker, I support this bill.
Very well. Let me have the member for the DAB. The member for the DAB, representatives of the people of the DAB.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the chance to contribute to this very important finance bill. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the chairman of the Finance Committee together with the committee members and also the staff from the National Treasury together with our parliamentary staff, who I'm sure provided a lot of technical support. Madam Speaker, our nation is one of the most heavily taxed nations in the world. And sometimes one of the biggest reasons why we are so heavily taxed is because our revenue base is very small, it's tax-based. And because of that, we continue to add up.
Order. Honorable Kajwang, you're a bit, you're consulting high tones. In fact, and you are the next one on the list. Yes, and you're consulting high tones. Please, can you allow the member for Seme? Yeah. Yes, the member, can we hear the member for the DAB?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the protection, Madam Speaker, for the protection. As I was saying that our nation is one of the most heavily taxed nations in the world. And because we depend heavily, our revenue base is mainly tax. So sometimes it's difficult to escape from the fact that we continue putting more pressure on people who are already burdened with a lot of taxation. And this is all because of the limited revenue base, because you only depend on tax. Madam Speaker, I want to say that one of the things that we need to do as a country, and I cannot agree more with the previous speakers, we have to address the issue of graft and corruption. The other thing which we need to address is the issue of spillage or loss of taxation. I can give you examples. For example, in this country, we have had the second set of county governors. And many county governors have met with the pending bills already existing. And some of them have refused to pay those pending bills, which have put many people out of business. The classical example is the Garissa County Governor, who has persistently refused to pay merchants who have done work which has been verified by the national audit, by all the arms of government concerned. And this, of course, is because of graft. Madam Speaker, I want to say on a very holistic way, as a country, we need also to look at our policies. Policies, for example, on SGR. We have the SGR from Mombasa now going to Suswa. Yet you see, as the SGR is transporting imports from Port of Mombasa, the wagons are going back empty. The idea initially, I'm sure, was to get imports in and exports through the same way. Now what's happening? Who is paying for those empty wagons who are being ferried back to the Port of Mombasa? This is because we have not developed industries, horticulture and agriculture sector in the hinterland so that our wagons would have gone back with the products for export to to other countries. And this country is not in short supply of things to export, from fish to agricultural produce to livestock to agricultural produce. We also need to think about policies pertaining to industrialization. Because without industrialization, we will continue to tax the very few Kenyans who are getting overtaxed. We have to think about new policies in agricultural sector, in mines, in commerce, in industry, and so on. I can tell you for free, Madam Speaker, although I'm not an expert in agriculture, for example, growing sugarcane in the Tana Delta or along Tana River will be much more productive than growing cane in the lake region, for example. Because in that area, there's a lot of sunshine, there's water, there's good soil, and you can produce a lot more cane sugar. The same applies to cotton. We are not saying that we should stop that one, but we should also encourage those areas also to become. What happened to the 10,000 acres, which was to be under farming in the Tana River Basin? What happened to it? Madam Speaker, we have also the livestock sector. Where I come from, and the vast part of this nation, we keep livestock. Our policies on livestock has not been very remarkable. I can say on record that most of the livestock from northern Kenya are now going to Somalia because the Somali government has, even though they have had problems, they have facilities for exporting livestock to the Arab world. What has prevented us from having the same in Kenya so that we could also export our cattle, our camels, our goats to the Arab world just the same way. And this actually, we are losing a lot of business because of that. Madam Speaker, the vast part of this country is the arid and semi-arid. And this area, I think that in the future, this will be the region that will be actually the economic drivers of this nation, including Ukambani, the coastal region, the northeastern, upper eastern, and the parts of the greater part of Rift Valley. These areas are endowed with a lot of natural resources, including minerals and potential for agriculture. And I want to say that some of the things that we can do as a policy is to open up these areas by improving the road networks. We are very happy right now. The road from Isiolo to Moyale has been done, and it has opened up that area. We are hoping that the government also will start the project from Isiolo to Wajir to Mandera, which already the funds are available. The road from Garissa to the border, Liboi. The road from the Lapset road from Lamu through Garissa County, Meru, Isiolo, Samburu, up to Turkana. Those are things that will open up those regions. And I can tell you, this country, we need to innovatively think about other ways of improving our revenue base, as I said earlier. Madam Speaker, I want to just support the previous speakers. It is not wise to tax those people who are earning monthly pension, because those people are already vulnerable. They are aged. They are also more predisposed to medical conditions, diabetes, hypertension, cancers, and so on. These are people who are in their sunset years, and they have worked for this nation. And I think it is very good for the committee to advise to remove tax on the monthly pension for pensioners. The other thing is that the issue of taxation of LPG gas, the liquefied petroleum gas. That is one way to save the environment. In addition, people who use firewood and charcoal at households is a dirty form of energy. It causes a lot of illnesses to children, to people who are hypersensitive to smoke and dust, and you could reduce morbidity due to asthma and chronic airway obstruction diseases. So it is very important also for us actually to remove that tax to save our forest and to save the health of many, many people. The issue of also allowing products from the EPZ to be sold locally, I think is a very welcome idea. Many investors have a chance to go and invest in the EPZ area, to put up factories and so on. And I'm sure if people will be able to, will know that they can produce and sell some of these products locally, I'm sure we will have many people who will set up factories and other assets in the EPZ area. That will also generate opportunities for employment and also create income for many Kenyans. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I support the bill. Thank you so much.
Very well, you support the bill. Thank you, the member for the DAB. Can I have now the honorable member for Ruaraka, the representative of the people of Ruaraka, Honorable TJ Kajwang?
At last, Madam Speaker, allow me to wind up the argument. It has been well buttressed by speakers before me, and I think they have said much more of what they would have, of what I would have said. I came as the watchman of Wanjiku because the neck of government, the knee of the government was in the neck of Wanjiku on this Unga business. So I came only to speak about Unga. I thought it was immoral that in a pandemic like this, one would ever want to put a tax, a VAT, on maize. Maize, what is the value added item in maize that would make somebody increase taxes by raising the price of maize, surely? Maize is now 100 shillings, getting to 110 to 120 per 1 kilo. Would somebody be mad when our people all over, they are asking for donations? You go to your constituency, people are killing you. That corona is killing them. And they want unga, they want to eat. Who in his literal mind would think that legislatures would pass such a thing? So, chairman of this committee, if you haven't taken it, you can know that we will not pass this. And if you are not going to bring an amendment, I will bring an amendment. That is what I wanted to speak about. But now that I'm on my feet, Madam Chair, this tax, road tax that everybody seems to be praising, you have to look at it again. It is well thought, but wrongly executed. This is not how it works. This will end up the same thing we have had here in Gilgil. It will still be a failure because it only increases the fare. And it only causes, it will cause congestion on the road in Mavoko and in Gilgil. How it is done elsewhere is different. First of all, we have to have companies who are building express highways so that if you decide to come from Mavoko or from Sultan Ahmud, you go straight. Your first destination is Kericho. So because you are using the highway, which is express, and an investor has put money on it, you pay because that is your choice. But for people who are using roads like I go to Ruaraka here, and you want me to pay, I pay tax every day, what you are doing is you are just lazy picking tax from people because they drive. So what should have been done? No, I don't want information. We have been here for too long.
Honorable Kajwang, you cannot be speaking, you also become a speaker. At the same time, there is a point intervention by
No, it is information, Mr. Speaker. He has to ask me whether I want this information or not.
Order. Can you allow the speaker to do work? Let me hear the intervention by the Honorable Limo. What is your intervention?
Yeah, just information.
No, you are point on,
yeah.
on the point of?
Yes,
Point of information.
Yes.
Order. Honorable Kajwang, do you want to be informed by the Honorable
Please accept.
member for Killing East?
He is a man I respect, and so I will take his information.
No, you
Yeah,
want to
thank
take
you.
his
Thank you very
information. Yes,
much.
member. Now that
You know, Oshima Kajwang, I really respect him. That's why I had to give information so that the rest of the members could get. In fact, this proposal on toll is specifically for PPP projects for expressway. And one of them is from airport to Westlands and from Nairobi to Mau Summit. For people who want to go express. The rest will be using free roads.
Very well. Now that Honorable Kajwang, you accepted the member for Killing East to inform you. Carry on with that
Thank you. I'm well advised, and precisely this is my point. You have not built an expressway, and you are here bringing a legislation today When I will drive out of Bunge here, there is nothing called an expressway here. It is still within the designs. It is still in the books. And somebody is bringing legislation. What you should have done, my respected chair, lay the infrastructure first. Get it done, make it the express that it should be. Like you go to Entebbe, you drive to Mukono. It is an expressway done by Chinese. And of course, if they are taking a toll on it, they are entitled to it, okay? But now, what I think where you messed, or not messed, but where there was an oversight, in my respectful view, is that you brought a legislation on road tax in a financial bill, as though it is miscellaneous. This is the problem of many legislations. You should have gone to the Toll Act itself and placed these very good amendments you have here in the Toll Act. Then you will be laying not only the framework, but the infrastructure for it. But right now, when this finance bill will take effect, and it will take effect here in July, it will not wait for the years in future when they will bring these things. They will start collecting these things, and I can tell you fares will go up. I can tell you spare parts will go up. I can tell you cost of motoring will go up. It will not do what these people are intending it to do. And lastly, Madam Speaker, so that I sit down, of course, I have a lot of respect for my friend who is the chair, and he's done a good job, I must say. But I just want to come back to the management, the presidium, that this is the way it should go. We must have a finance bill before we go to an appropriation bill. And we have fought on the plenary here. We have poured water here and cried here, so that we understand this simple thing, which now, gladly, although you had to wait for the courts to decide, the courts didn't have to decide. You must have a finance bill before then you can appropriate what we are doing here. And so, maybe it is because now we have a new chair who is alive to some of these constitutional things, and we think we will have better times in this chamber. But the only thing now I want to ask the chair to desist from, don't bring legislations under miscellaneous amendments to the Finance Act. Go to the Act themselves, look at them properly, and make those amendments in their pieces of legislation. That way, you are unlikely to get the kind of criticism from TJ Kajwang and company. But, Madam Chair, I want to support this finance bill, as long as there will be no UNGA increment, as long as the VAT on LPG gas will not be there, as long as my father, my retired teacher father, will not be taxed just because he's enjoying himself in retirement. I will stand for him, and I will stand for all those retirees who have to enjoy the little things they have in life before the Lord calls them home. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Honorable Kajwang, you really represented the people and also your expertise. I'm sure the chair is also noting and able also to consult, knowing the process. Very well. Let me have the member for Gatanga.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also make my contribution. I would like to start by thanking the Finance Committee. They have really done a nice job. And also, for our government, I also want to say they have also supported Kenyans by coming up with nice tax proposals.
Just intervention, member for Gatanga. This member went for intervention and this. Very well. Very well.
Is the chair?
Not the chair.
Oh, the vice chair.
It should be the vice chair.
Thank you very much. I was saying the government has also supported Kenyans by reducing the income tax, reducing the corporate tax, and reducing VAT from 16 to 14%. But I wanted to ask the chairman to consider the withholding VAT is still at 6%, which I think is high. With us having a withholding tax of 3%, maybe you should consider, and we also bring the withholding VAT to about 4%, so that we can put more money in the pockets of Kenyans. I'm also happy to hear from the chairman that KRA is working on a system where they are going to match what the supplier and the buyer, are charging, because it has been very difficult to deal with the VAT Act, especially when it comes to the deduction by some suppliers and they don't remit tax. Madam Speaker, today I was doing my tax and I realized one of my clients, the whole of 2018, had not submitted VAT deducted, and I've just realized it the other day. So if we come up with a system which will be able to match those two people, I am sure it is going to help this country. On the imposition of residential rental income tax, this one I support. And the increment from 10 million to 15 million, this is a good move. But I also want to say that I've heard some members here saying that landlords should be paid more, they need to reduce rent. This would be unfair to landlords, especially the ones who are genuine. Because I'm in the construction industry and I know, for the genuine developers, most of them borrow up to 70%. Then with the remaining 30% is what they pay KRA, 10%, agency and other costs, maybe 10%, and the landlord is left with about 10%. So asking him again to even reduce the rent, it would be burdening him too much. And I wouldn't support that. On the road toll, I support. It's a good way of developing our infrastructure. But I want to say, before we go that way, before we start charging our road users, because most of these projects have been proposed to be done through PPP, we need to reform the PPP secretariat. We don't have adequate staff. They are underfunded, very underfunded, with a very lean staff. I don't think they have the technical capacity to undertake whatever is being promised here. Madam Speaker, I also want to say, as a country, we have suffered a lot. Most of the debts which we are paying today is as a result of these projects being done under these systems, PPP, design, finance, and build projects like the SGR, where some of these projects are designed in foreign countries, priced in foreign currencies, and drawings submitted in foreign languages, where people are not able to understand. Like SGR, personally, I would say it was overpriced. A railway of about 400 kilometers priced at about 400 billion, a billion per kilometer, that is too expensive. And it's a mistake we made. We didn't involve our people in the design. We need to have Kenyans are well educated, very well educated. They should get involved in these projects. This idea of having these projects, then we say we are going to give Kenyans 30%, and it doesn't happen. When we are constructing the SGR, nothing was left here. That is where government invested a lot of money, 400 billion. Kenyans gained nothing, apart from manual jobs. On taxing of pensioners, as my colleagues have said, it is good, and I want to congratulate the chairman for dropping that idea. It is not right to tax our aged people. As has been said, most of them suffer from many diseases, and we need to support them. On digital service tax, Chairman, I want to encourage you with your team. This is an area we need to tax, even if the youth are involved in these projects. Our youth have not said that they are not interested in paying tax, and we need to train them when they are still very young to pay tax. Who will pay for them? You want to encourage them not to pay tax from when they are 20, when they get to 35. Is it the time they start paying? You'll be encouraging them from the start to dodge taxes. So, Chairman, that one I want to encourage. Let's charge them. On the Tax Procedure Act, Chairman, you have told us there is now a voluntary disclosure program, which we support. I remember when Kibaki became the president of this country, he introduced the same scheme, and many Kenyans got into the tax bracket. Chairman, I've seen the proposal is people start paying, the implementation will be from 1st January 2021. We want Kenyans to start paying taxes immediately. We have many projects which we want to implement. Can we start paying from 1st July, or when this law takes effect? We don't have to delay until 2021. On the Standards Act cap, Madam Speaker, I want to thank the committee. The consolidator has been defined, and now the consignee will become visible, and most of our people in River Road will now be able to pay taxes, having been recognized by the government. Lastly, Madam Speaker, is on KRA. I'm very happy that KRA is being encouraged to collect taxes on behalf of other government agencies or even county governments. KRA is very efficient, even at 2%, this is very fair. I have seen what is happening in Nairobi County. They have become very efficient, and I know even what Nairobi County government used to collect before as land rates, and even the parking fee will go up. On club membership and CSR, and especially club membership, Chairman, when a company pays for club membership, that one should not be taxed. It's good to encourage our people to join clubs. They will become healthy. They'll do what I do every morning, run 10 kilometers in a club. That is contributing to the wealth of this nation. Because personally, maybe for a whole year, I don't take any drugs. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Very well said, very well said. Let me have the member for Kabondo Kasipu, the Honorable Bara Akinyi.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It's been a long day. And first and foremost, let me also appreciate the Finance Committee under the able chairmanship of Honorable Limo. And I want to state that at least he presented it in a manner that made it very simple for many of us to follow. Madam Speaker, when we last week completed the appropriation of the budget, at the back of my mind, I was worried on how this was going to be supported, particularly at a time like this when the whole world is facing extreme difficulties from the COVID. But I must state that I am happy that the Treasury and the Finance Committee did a good job to try as much as possible to try and see how this could be bridged. Although I can still see that we will still have a deficit in our budget. Maybe by the time we are discussing it next week on the committee of the whole House, we'll probably have figures on what the deficit could probably be looking like. Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, on areas that I think must be relooked at have been mentioned by my colleagues. One of them is on the LPG gas, the 14% tax. We can't be talking of clean energy and at the same time increasing tax on the LPG. We can't even be talking about the green economy. Secondly, on areas of taxation of maize flour, which my colleagues have mentioned, if you talk about maize seed exempt from VAT, and then you tax the product, what are you talking about? So this is another area that we have to look at. Maize or ugali, or unga as we put it, is the staple food for Kenyans, and not only for certain regions in this country, and we know that very well. If there's one thing that Kenyans have been crying about is unga during this COVID time when they had no food to eat, and it has been unga. So, Finance Committee, please, as members have said, that is an area that is a no-go zone. see what can be done so that maize flour is not taxed. The other one that needs to be looked at, in my view, is on matters health. Kenyans don't have to go to India all the time. The cost of medicine is so high in this country that many have died when they could easily have prevented those deaths because of lack of medication. So in this area, Madam Speaker, the committee needs to look at it. Talking about the ambulance alone is a drop in the ocean. The other area that has been considered, and I think by now we all know that it would have been disastrous, is on taxing the pension of retirees. And I won't belabor this point, and I want to appreciate the committee for dropping this proposal. As you can clearly see that this was one of the most unpopular ones in the entire bill. Madam Speaker, let me appreciate the committee for coming up with incentives to Kenyans, particularly on areas like voluntary tax disclosure. And there's no better way of giving the Kenyans a friendly environment to pay their taxes. And I can assure you that the taxes that we'll collect will be much, much higher through this method than what was previously happening of taxmen walking around in estates, which was really an embarrassment. Taxmen walking around in estates, who is the landlord here? How much are they paying? I mean, that was ridiculous. And then they make all the phone calls, and you know what happens when they make phone calls to the landlords. I'm also happy that we are able to reduce tax on the rental income to an easy 10%. So 10% up to a maximum of 15 million. If you have that kind of rental income, I think this will cushion the landlords and the landowners. Finally, Madam Speaker, so that I don't take too much time, it's 9 o'clock, I've never been in Parliament for this long. Let me finally just also thank, so that my one colleague, I think there are two who are left here, let me just thank once again the committee, and I support their report. Thank you.
Obara Akinyi, we have many chambers. You can see some members here and others are in different chambers outside there.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, so I support once again. Thank you very much.
Very well, very well, and well said, Honourable Member for Campbellsburg. Members, there have been no another request from a member to speak to the finance bill. I therefore call upon the mover to reply. And for this matter, it's the Honourable Member for Roysambu.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Allow me to thank my chair for ably moving this bill, and to thank also all the members who have contributed and aired their views. We have heard them, Madam Speaker, and truly in the remarks we have captured the points they wanted amended. Madam Speaker, in particular, I would want to reassure members that the minimum tax, which has been proposed in Clause 3 and 4, 7, and 9, of a rate of 1% of gross turnover, Madam Speaker, the motive of this tax is to ensure that we bring on board companies who earn income from Kenya but end up declaring losses perpetually to avoid payment of corporate taxes. We are also aware, Madam Speaker, that these companies continue to enjoy the infrastructure facilities, such as roads, which continue being serviced by the government from tax revenue. So this 1% of gross will enable such entities to contribute to the development of infrastructure of this country. Madam Speaker, it is important to remind members of this House that just the other day, our government forewent income of 172 billion in order to bring initiatives and a stimulus package to ensure that our economy does not collapse. Madam Speaker, you know some of the initiatives that have been taken by the government, like the reduction of VAT from 16 to 14%, reduction of pay for various categories of employees, and even the stimulus package of 100 billion for Kazi Mtaani. Madam Speaker, it is also not lost on us that this last year, our government had a total tax expenditure of 535 billion. So, Madam Speaker, in trying to balance this bill, we have tried as much as possible to remove exemptions, subsidies, deductions, tax waivers, and other allowances and incentives that compromise our revenue targets, and only left exemptions that are entirely critical to sectors of our economy. Madam Speaker, we have also proposed the taxation on digital marketplace. You know, Madam Speaker, we brought in this law in the last finance bill, which describes or explains what digital marketplace is. And therefore, we are introducing the digital service tax at 1.5% of gross transaction. Madam Speaker, as has been captured by members here who have given examples of such digital platforms like Alibaba, the Amazon, and Uber. This tax will help to level the competition environment in this country for businesses. I would cite the example of our local taxis who have been complaining that Uber is engaging them in unfair competition. That is the truth, Madam Speaker. And I think by levying this tax, we shall be creating a level playground for the foreign companies and for our local operators. And this tax, Madam Speaker, is intended to yield about 2 billion Kenya shillings. Madam Speaker, this finance bill has not forgotten the contributions of companies in corporate social responsibility. And among the items that have been allowed capital deduction are investments in the construction of schools, public hospitals, roads, and such similar social infrastructure. So, Madam Speaker, I also want to assure members who have raised their concern about the taxing of the elderly, of the very vulnerable senior citizens, that our committee has considered this matter, and at the right stage, we shall be proposing amendments to ensure that we save our pensioners from that tax. Indeed, you know, our government has been at the front line in promoting welfare for the pensioners, particularly through the Inua Jamii program, the cash transfers for the vulnerable, the aiding, and our elder citizens. So, Madam Speaker, I want to assure members that we will be looking up to their support for these amendments. Madam Speaker, I also want to assure members that we are exempting maize corn seeds from VAT because, Madam Speaker, we want to caution farmers from the high cost of maize seeds for sowing, particularly allowed this rainy season, and bearing in mind the effects of the locust invasion and the floods. So, Madam Speaker, the government will be losing in tax expenditure to the tune of about 20 million by allowing these deductions. So, Madam Speaker, it is not all about government taking away, it is also about government balancing to help our farmers. And this will help the government also to ensure that one of the 4 pillars, that is food security, is achieved. Madam Speaker, we are also exempting from VAT ambulance services. This is in addition to medical, nursing, and dental services, which are already exempt from VAT. This proposal will further caution Kenyans from the high cost of seeking medical services, particularly in these hard times of COVID-19 pandemic. And it is important to ease the burden on access of medical services. Madam Speaker, you are aware that every county has been charged to put up medical facilities that can be able to accommodate and treat our sick patients. And Madam Speaker, even the health minister has been moving around the country inspecting these facilities. Therefore, the exempting of VAT for these ambulance services will go a long way in enabling our counties to put up those facilities and offer these services. Madam Speaker, I also want to add and say, connected to the digital service tax, we have also made proposals for the appointment of digital tax service agents.
You have 18 seconds for your planning.
Yeah. We also supporting the appointment of digital tax service agents for the collection of digital service tax. This will create jobs and enterprise.
You are not on record, so I give you 1 minute to...
So with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to reply.
You beg to reply. Very well, honourable members, having the bill been moved, debated, and replied procedurally, members, I want to order, or I do order that the question to the bill will to be put in the next sitting. Order, members. Order, members, the time being 9:28 p.m., this House stands adjourned till Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. We thank you. Yes, it's correction from the clerk's desk is 10 a.m. We thank you all.